What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at super micro computer stock, ticker symbol SMCI, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Tuesday, March 5th. All right, guys, SMCI stock here today up $168.86 a share, 18.65%. A new all-time high for the stock, cracking 1100. We have a little bit to talk about here, so let's get to it. If you're new here or you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel and I'll do my best to continue to provide you value every single day. Okay, I'm uploading every day, 7 days a week. Now, I want to start here on SMCI on the 5-minute chart, and let's kind of dive in slow and do our daily volume profile analysis and stay grounded heading into tomorrow. This is a big day. I bet a lot of you are probably up quite a bit today on paper. Speaking of that, I am curious, let me know in the comment section, are you guys trading this stock or are you holding this for the long term? I'm very curious to hear, because I know that there's both you. I'm curious to see what the split is there in terms of time frame sentiment. So you guys know what I'm looking for here, right? I'm looking for big volume changes that correlate with obvious moves in stock price. But here's the kicker. It has to be out of context for what is typically expected on an average day at that particular time of day. Okay, so for example, I'm looking at these very obvious moves such as this one. Multiple green candles in a row, 5-minute bars, right? Which I think is the best chart to do this kind of volume analysis on. And then also, into the close we expect higher volume, but I am curious if that was out of context high. So let's take a look. Let's start here with this upside move on the left, that upside move. And if we look here at the volume on that, you can see it's actually quite interesting. Just understand, if you are looking at chat rooms, forums, Reddit, whatever, tonight, stock twits, you'll notice that as long as people are paying close enough attention, you'll likely see that people are saying, hey, did you notice that like 10:30 to 11 Eastern time move, and we got a higher sustained increased volume profile on that? That is something that bulls like to see. Okay, so just keep in mind, bears, you are going to see that likely out of the bullish community who are at least paying somewhat attention tonight and Tuesday morning. Now, heading into the close, we did see a slight increase in bearish volume, I suppose, to about 400,000 on the biggest candle on that downside move into the close. However, for me, I like to see sustained volume, right? We saw at least 3 bars, if not 6, of higher sustained volume, and this was like 1, maybe 2. You got that break of that flat bar that actually ended up being green, kind of a battle bar there, and then some consolidation in the last 2 bars into the close. So really, as far as downside movement, you got, these 2 bars, for me, it's not definitive enough bears. So that being the case here, let's move on and start looking at really self-fulfilling prophecy, crucial psychological levels that I'm paying close attention to heading into tomorrow. So when we discussed this one last week, Friday night, we had that big after hours move, okay, on the news. And we discussed how volume was higher, okay, which makes the move that much more definitive, but we still had to take it with a grain of salt. So we were looking ahead to today, what now is Monday, to see, okay, does this after hours move hold? 2 things happened. Not only did the move hold, but it held on higher volume than is average. Is that not exactly what we talked about, what we're looking for last Friday, right? If you caught the weekend video heading into today. If you're a bull, that's a pretty great thing to see, at least from a day-to-day perspective, right? What that also did here on the 30-minute is it yanked that psychological self-fulfilling prophecy level of the 50-period EMA, that white line, to above $1,000 a share. I always want to see psychological barriers, or what have the potential to be barriers, getting up underneath the move. Get some feet up underneath the move and getting ahead of $1,000 a share. If you're a bull, listen, you'll take that, right? Because that's another barrier ahead of a huge psychological level. Granted, it's just one factor. It's just the 30-minute chart. It's just one moving average. It's one single psychological area that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, nothing more, nothing less, but I'll take it. So listen, bulls, any downside test of that level, I'm going to want to see a high volume bounce away from there. It's helping to protect $1,000 a share. Bears, we'll get to this on the daily, but you're obviously going to want to see a high volume downside break through that level. That helps you in a variety of ways. Let's move on now to the 4-hour chart. You can see here that the 4-hour is slightly less in play. That 50 period is still below $900 a share. So truthfully, I'm always paying attention to it. If I'm a bull, I just want to see this 50 period moving upside as quickly as possible. If I'm a bear, I'd prefer to see that flatten out. Honestly, I'm not going to waste any more time on the 4-hour because that's really all that's contextual enough to even talk about from a day-to-day perspective here on this chart. Obviously, any massive downside move and a test of that 50 period bulls, you're going to want to see a high volume, hard bounce away from that level. Bears, as much volume as possible, downside break through there. Just understand that, anything's possible with SMCI as of late. It's a volatile name, but that is an 18% downside move. But we had an 18.6% move to the upside today. So just remaining aware of these things, not only looking at the factors that support our bias, right? It's always important to understand that other side of the trade. Now, the most important chart of all, the daily. This thing is on such a run. The moving averages on the daily are not immediately relevant. The nearest is the 50-day. And by the way, these are the two that everyone has on their chart. The daily is going to have the most eyeballs around the world on this name and most other tickers. The 50-day is at 560. We're nearly double that. So the daily chart really boils down to psychological areas. All right, this looked a little different on Friday, didn't it? That last candle was Friday. Now, the after-hours move did, of course, help, and this doesn't reflect the after-hours move. It's only going to be the close, so consider that. But listen, we are now presented with the levels that we've been talking about for a while. Those ranges were pretty wide, okay? And they just changed quite a bit. We have been talking for days and days and days on this name, on this channel, that a lot of bulls have their sights set on $1,200 a share, don't they? All of a sudden, that's in play. If I'm a bull on SMCI tomorrow, here's what I'm looking for. Any downside test of $1,000 a share, I want to see a huge, high volume hold. I don't care if it's a battle. I just want to see as much volume as possible and as hard of a bounce away to the upside, of course, from that level as possible. Ideally, I wouldn't even want that to occur. Ideally, I would just want to see 1100. We kind of skip ahead right to 1100, hold 11 as a support level, as the new support level. I don't really mind if it's average volume. I don't mind if it trades sideways at 11 for a little while. Just hold 11 would be a beautiful thing. And then, of course, we could look to potentially utilize 11 from a bullish perspective to move upside toward that next area of $1,200 a share. Now, listen, bears, what's your primary objective? You want this to be a 3-figure name again, don't you? Right? That's the primary objective. So that means let's hold 1100 at least as a hard resistance level, right? I don't care if we bounce below that. I just want to see a hard, high volume fade downside away back toward $1,000 a share, because ideally, if you're a bear, you want to give up $1,000 a share. You don't want this to be a 4-figure name. You want this to be a 3-figure name. Get this back below $1,000 a share ASAP and on as much volume as possible. If you're a bear, that is your primary goal. Now, implied volatility, if you are trading options or interested in the stability of the name, it is up a little bit. Okay, not to be expected after a day like that. Understand that the higher IV goes, the higher is the potential risk for IV crush. Okay, understand that. You will see options traders take on that risk, of course. It's one factor of many, but typically the reason traders will do that is because they have confidence that they can outrun any potential IV crush risk with a delta move. Now, let's take a look. I know that this is a lot of your guys' favorite part of the video. Let's take a look at the bias from the options traders today. This is only from today as traders position themselves heading into Tuesday. We had about 414,000 total contracts traded. About 245,000 of those were calls and about 169,000 of those were puts. So we are seeing a bit of a call side bias here on SMCI Monday. But if we break this down by time frame, every single delta range is leaning to the call side except for the 0 to 20 delta range. 0 to 20, those are going to be the short-term speculators, the gambly style speculative contracts that are far out of the money. That is leaning almost twice as much to the put side compared to the call side. Whereas the rest, more like the midterm and the longer term on average sentiments, right? Because you start getting a little bit less out of the money, but still out of the money, at the money, in the money, and deep in the money. Those all leaning call side. But just understand that those short-term speculators are leaning pretty heavily to the put side. Seemingly the short-term kind of, gambly style contracts, the speculators, they're betting against today's move. But when you consider the volume in its entirety, we are still leaning rather heavily to the call side overall. Listen, this is a volatile name, right? Please make sure your risk is managed at all times. It's a volatile name. These are great stocks to trade, right? It attracts a lot of attention when a stock like this is quote unquote in play. A lot of traders' attention on both sides of the ball, bullish and bearish. But number one on this channel, no one trade is worth wiping you out, right? Priority number one, stay in the game, so manage that risk. Listen, if you got value out of this video, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you, and I'll see you tomorrow.